and that had to be Monday night. So let's play that clip there. And of course, this is about securing a levy to keep the schools solvent. But you want to remember that the school district and my issue, and you'll hear me talk about it, we need some sound out here.
Speakers, debate coaches are good. But let's, all right. The issue, is this on, by the way?
Yes.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The issue that I see is as we look at this need for ever, I'm going to call it increasing resources. And why do I say that? I had a conversation, long conversation today with Dale Sundstrom, Business Services, and Barb Anderson, Finance and Budgeting over in Roseville. And the discussion was about the school district finances. Now, the one question, and I hope Dale can give this to me tonight because I called back and I didn't get back through, was the issue of what is the total current debt of this district today, all debt included. Can you respond to that?
I believe it's about 120 million.
About 120 million. And I say that from the standpoint, this goes back to the time of who is now State Senator Chuck Weaver. And I hold him responsible for this, that he made it possible, well, with his funding of teacher or non-voter approved funding of teacher pensions that came back to this district, and the district had a bond for $30 million because the state required those pensions to become funded. Then after that, he also pushed through the issue of non-voter approved 6 to 8, which cost this district 6 to 8 million a year, levy for maintenance. So these kind of things, 300 million, 6 to 8 million, and I know Dale said he'd like to get it down to about 4 million a year, that this adds up. Pretty soon we have, what, 120 million in debt out there? You know, you have to compare this to the federal government and their 14, 15 trillion million dollars of debt. And at least one of the conservative parties is saying we can't keep going down this road. We have to balance our house. We can't keep doing this. So with the levy itself, the $833 a student, that's like the ant in the room. But we have a mouse or an elephant in the room too. And we need to look at the elephant. And we just can't keep running a district that goes ever further and further in debt. So how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? That's not my job. It's Dale's job. It's Patty Phillips' job. And I suspect that this is statewide. And you see where the state is. Governments cannot keep running these kind of deficits. They cannot give out unfunded pensions and keep the system afloat. Something has to be changed here. So with that in mind, you know, we're going to talk about this more, or I'm going to talk about this more on the television show. And of course, it is. I want to see the students have a good education. And I don't want this district to end up losing more and more students over there to that neighboring district over in Bonamini that has 27% open enrollment. That means 27%, more than 1 out of 4 of their students come from outside the district. And why does that happen? Why will people leave this district or other districts? It's a perception out there of where their student or their child is going to get the best education. It's a hard place to be in. I want to, before I can say that I'll support this kind of levy, I need the elephant to be addressed. I need to hear how the district is going to deal with the big issue here, long term, not just another Band-Aid. Thank you.
I have a question for you. Are you saying that the district is that far in debt simply because of a pension fund, or are you accusing the district of?
All right, we'll start playing from the question that woman poses, but I want to say, when you start playing, start where that woman, just back it up a little bit, but not right now. The issue there is when Chuck Weger, who's now state senator, was on the school board. And you have to remember who was on that school board. People like Scott Waslick, Jerry Hansen, Dick Seppala. What they were doing, folks, is so it wouldn't show up on their watch, for these contracts, they were giving the teachers huge pension increases, but they weren't funding them. And so, you know, we'll let the next guy take responsibility for this. And you know, for Chuck Weger, I'll be on the other side of the burning bridge. I'll be down there at the state senate. So I'll hand out these pensions. I'll look good, and because those are future debts, and we don't have to actually raise the budget while Chuck Weger is on the school board. And so now he's down there, and he created this huge, the North St. Paul Maplewood Oakdale School District had to bond for $30 million to make those pensions whole. You didn't get to vote on that. That was more Chuck Weger. When Chuck Weger went down, and we're going to talk about that too, when he got down there at the state senate, now he had to try to cover up what he did in the past. So now the school district, the legislation is that the school district can bond to cover these pensions, and it's just part of that $120 million debt. You, the voters, didn't get to approve that. And then Mr. Weger did this other little scam, sleight of eye. He took maintenance offline, off the general budget, and said these school districts like North St. Paul, there was a couple others, can just levy or bond for maintenance and not have to go to the people. You see how he created all this unfunded debt, and now he's trying to find a way that the district can keep moving and don't have to account for it, but you have this massive debt, and you, the people, have to pay. So now, up to this time, and we'll talk about St. Paul another time because their debt is huge in comparison, the $120 million, 6, 8, 10, there was, I believe, 1 year even that was $12 million that they took for maintenance that went on to the debt roll that you didn't get to approve. So that's what's going on there. All right, let's play the rest of this. We're going to be short on time. We have so much tonight.
Are you saying that the district is that far in debt simply because of a pension fund, or are you accusing the district of poor handling of money in other ways also? I'm not quite clear on that.
What I'm saying, and Dale can address this, how many years ago was it now that they had to bond for $30 million for the pensions without voter approval? How many years ago was that?
That was about 3 or 4 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago. There's $30 million of the 120. Now,
That's only 1/4 of it.
okay, but now listen. Every year, the maintenance is levied without voter approval. So when do you run your house that way? Do you
I don't
constantly
have to
go
do
on?
all that.
I don't operate that way. I have to balance it short-term and long-term. So if we're borrowing $6 to $8 billion just in the maintenance, and you run that for 10 years, There's $80 million. You add $30 million on top of that, you have some real money here.
How much of this do you attribute to the fact that the state has been cutting funds or not increasing funds to schools for the last 10 years?
Well, you know, all right, let's go back to when Jesse Ventura was in there and he picked up all the funding off the local level. And what did we talk about that time? You're creating a vacuum and the debt is going to come right back. The debt came back. The debt came back to the state. The debt is at the federal government. We have people out there that can't pay for it. That you make a comparison.
He kept cutting the taxes. There's no income in the state, so the schools are not getting what they should be getting.
Let me ask you this question. How much do you think is enough for each student's education in this district? We talked about Roseville.
Certainly as much as we've got here.
Well, give me a figure. What would you think it should cost per student to educate a child?
I can't put a number on it because I don't know.
When's enough? In Roseville, it's $17,000 per student. That was the comparison. We compared ourselves to Roseville. $17,000 per student per year. I don't think that we can sustain those kind of levels of spending.
I don't think we can afford not to fund all these things. Our kids need an education that's worthwhile.
You know.
Well, there you go. See, it's a proverbial question. Just tell me when enough is enough. Give me that figure out there that says how much I need to pay so we can, arrive at that. But the elephant's in the room, and it's always that moving target. It's always, well, today it's $17,000 a student. The way you come up with those figures is you take the whole school district's budget, their whole operation, the whole works, what they spend a year. And then you take the number of students and you divide it into that outlay. And you see that you're spending $17,000 a year for these students. That's Roseville, St. Paul, Minneapolis. Minneapolis is higher. So at what point in time do we say, you know what? When we talk about our children's education, how about when we talk about that we're mortgaging our children's future? 14.5, 15 trillion federal, the county, the state, what's the state? 5 billion. The school district, depending on what school district you're in. The city, Maplewood, 90 million, 50 million annual budget. Folks, you can't keep operating that way. I was with one of the electricians yesterday, down taking some electrical classes, and afterwards I talked to him. He has 5 children, a wife, and he's been out of work for, well, first he was out for 6 months, then he went and got a job for 2 months, now he's been out for 3 months, and there's 380 some people in front of him before he'll go back to work. He's looking at a job that maybe pays $12 an hour to raise 5 kids and a wife and keep a house going. Isn't that wonderful? And we can go out and spend, what's the $675 million to build a stadium for Ziggy Wolf? Well, folks, let's take and spend $675 million and build new schools. At least we own them, and our children will get something out of them for the next 50, 75 years. You know, if you want to talk about job creation, and that's what's pushing this, some of the construction trades, let's build something that the people own, not that a billionaire owns. All right, now I think that's enough said about North St. Paul, Roseville, and you take that $833 per student times 10,000 students, roughly, or 11,000, about $9 million is what they're asking for here. And so let's address the long-term debt. Let's address the elephant in the room before we start approving anything.